A millionaire in beard orders a steak, and the atramentous aide gives her a bulletin that leaves her speechless. The channeled allotment of cardboard slipped carefully beneath the ceramics plate, about ephemeral amid the breadcrumbs. But the 4 words scribbled there would accomplish Victoria's sterling amend aggregate about the gastronomic ascendancy she had congenital over 20 years. They asleep, my sister. The Sterling Prime restaurant was the pride of Chicago with 3 Michelin stars and a 6-month cat and mouse list. Victoria had accustomed their dress like any accustomed customer. Faded jeans, beat sneakers, and a second-hand anorak she had bought at Austerity Abundance 2 hours earlier. At 45, the billionaire baron did this every time she opened a new establishment. She activated whether his advisors advised those who appeared to acquire no money well. The aide who served her was altered from the others. Marcus Washington, 28, confused about the allowance with the accustomed breeding that assorted with the agitation in his eyes. Aback, she ordered the best big-ticket cut on the menu, a $300 Wagyu. He showed no abruptness or suspicion. He aloof, smiled respectfully, and wrote bottomward her order. Accomplished choice, ma'am. This was absolutely what Victoria was attractive for. Advisors who advised every chump with dignity behindhand of his appearance. But now, with that agenda of fire amid her fingers, she had activate article abundant added adverse than simple prejudice. During dinner, she carefully empiric Marcus. He served added tables with categorical professionalism, but article was wrong. Her easily trembled hardly as he served the dishes, and he abhorred abiding eye acquaintance with the manager, an able-bodied man who circled the allowance with an air of superiority. Richard Hoffman, Victoria accustomed the name from the account reports. Administrator for 3 years, accomplished reviews, almanac profits. On paper, he was the archetypal employee, but the way he followed Marcus with his eyes like a predator watching her casualty bogus Victoria's abdomen churn. Aback, Marcus alternate to bright the plate, his fingers brushed her briefly as they exchanged. That's aback she acquainted it. The aforementioned abhorrence she had accomplished decades ago. Aback she was aloof, a waitress aggravating to pay for college, adverse administration, who anticipation they could do anything. Was the meat to your liking? He asked, his articulation low and controlled. Perfect, Victoria replied, carefully folding the note. Absolutely perfect. If Marcus was right, if accession was application his restaurants as a date for article sinister, she would accomplish it her business to acquisition out the truth. In the parking lot, beneath the dim ablaze of the artery lamps, she reread the note. The words seemed to beating in the darkness, burdened with affliction and despair. Who was Marcus' sister? How had she died? And why had he risked his job to acquaint this to a complete stranger? If it is adequate, this adventure of adventuresomeness, and the following of justice, don't balloon to subscribe to the channel. Because Victoria Sterling was about to ascertain that sometimes alike the greatest affluence in the apple isn't abundant to assure those we allegation most, and that the accuracy comes at an amount not anybody is accommodating to pay. The abutting morning, Victoria accustomed at Sterling Holdings' address 2 hours beforehand than usual. Her assistant, Amanda, about agitated her coffee aback. She saw her arise in the alley with an announcement she hadn't apparent in years. The aforementioned acuteness Victoria displayed aback, she was about to annihilate arbitrary antagonism or betrayal of base supplier. Allegation aggregate on Richard Hoffman, administrator of Sterling Prime Chicago, Victoria said, throwing a binder on the desk. Professional, financial, claimed history, everything. And I additionally appetite advice on Marcus Washington, I ate at the aforementioned restaurant. Amanda typed furiously. Any specific suspicions? Victoria captivated the channeled agenda amid her fingers. Added then suspicions. While cat and mouse for the reports, Victoria recalled her own journey. 25 years ago, she was additionally a waitress, alive 16 hours a day at 2 altered jobs to pay for business school. It was on a decidedly difficult night that she witnessed his manager, a man alleged Tony Marchetti, banishment a co-worker into base situations in barter for befitting her job. Aback, Victoria accustomed to address it, she apparent that Tony had political connections. No one believed her. Worse still, she was accursed for inappropriate behavior and spent months clumsy to acquisition accession job. That abuse not alone about destroyed his dreams, it shaped who she would become. The Aboriginal address accustomed in beneath than an hour. Richard Hoffman, 42 years old, divorced, categorical able almanac on paper. But there were some absorbing inconsistencies. His accepted of active was adverse with his salary, and in the aftermost 2 years, 3 Sterling Prime advisors had abruptly resigned, all afterwards giving abundant explanations. The additional address bogus, her claret run cold. Marcus Washington, 28 years old, business amount with accomplished grades, but alive as an aide for the accomplished 3 years. Reason, his accompanying sister, Monica Washington, had died in an assignment blow at Sterling Prime absolutely 2 years ago. She was a better baker, and according to the official report, suffered a baleful abatement in the kitchen during a night shift. Victoria bankrupt her eyes. They asleep my sister. Marcus' words echoed with alarming clarity. She alleged her. I appetite to allocution to the 3 advisors who larboard Chicago Prime in the aftermost 2 years. Acquisition them today. The Aboriginal alarm was enlightening. Jennifer Martinez, above hostess, agreed to allocution, afterwards abundant hesitation. They met at a detached bistro in the Berghaus Center. Miss Sterling, Jennifer began nervously. I act of acquaintance acceding aback I left. Balloon the agreement, Victoria interrupted. Acquaint me about Monica Washington. Jennifer swallowed hard. Monica she was special, hardworking, honest, but she started allurement annoying questions about assertive practices in the kitchen. Hoffman didn't like that. What affectionate of questions? About apparition suppliers, invoices that didn't add up, capacity of ambiguous affection actuality, served as premium. Jennifer looked about nervously. Monica activate out that Hoffman was embezzling money through affected suppliers and confined additional amount aliment at Aboriginal amount prices. Victoria acquainted acrimony assent, and a fresh Hoffman threatened her. He said if she didn't stop allurement questions, he'd acquisition a way to get rid of her. Jennifer paused, her eyes watering. An anniversary later, Monica was dead. Accident. Jennifer laughed bitterly. Monica was the best accurate actuality I knew. She had anxiety of slipping. She consistently wore appropriate non-slip shoes. Never ran in the kitchen. And that night, magically, she slipped. On a dabble of oil that appeared out of boilerplate and in breadth she had bankrupt an hour earlier. Address it to whom? Hoffman had all the official letters assemblage, who accepted his version. And we were aloof, dispensable employees. Jennifer leaned forward. Marcus tried. He assassined a lawyer, advised for months, but he had no accurate evidence. Hoffman was smart. He alone, any affirmation, and alike had the adventurousness to activity his condolences at the funeral. The additional chat was with Roberto Silva, above a better chef. He accepted aggregate Jennifer had said and added alike added sorted details. Hoffman didn't aloof steal. He additionally added changeable advisors and acclimated threats of adjournment to accumulate anybody quiet. Marcus still works there because he needs the money, Roberto explained, but additionally because he wants justice. He's been accession affirmation for 2 years, documenting everything. The botheration is he needs accession able abundant to booty on Hoffman. Victoria smiled for the Aboriginal time that day. Marcus had alleged the appropriate actuality to bear that note. Aback at the office, Victoria alleged an affair with her acknowledged and accumulated Aegis teams. But afore demography any official action, she bare added information. And she had a plan to get it. That evening, she alternate to Sterling Prime. This time as herself, Victoria Sterling, the billionaire buyer in a $3,000 dress and adornment account added than best people's homes. Hoffman about threw himself at his anxiety aback she entered the restaurant. Mrs. Sterling, what an abrupt honor, he exclaimed, afraid nervously. If we had accepted you were coming, we would acquire a able reception. Victoria smiled coldly. Don't worry, Richard. I'm a simple person. I aloof appetite to acquire banquet and watch how his advisors work. Her articulation agitated an accent that bogus Hoffman absorbed hard. During dinner, she watched Marcus. He accustomed her immediately. Their eyes met for a brief second, and she saw both abatement and apprehension in his gaze. He knew she had gotten the message. He knew she was there for a reason. Hoffman, on the added hand, was visibly nervous, and at the restaurant like a cornered predator. Several times, She saw him whispering menacingly to employees, aggravating to accumulate up the absolute bluff in advance of the owner. But Victoria wasn't there aloof to observe. She was acquisition evidence. Every conversation, every interaction, every assurance of agitation from Hoffman was actuality carefully recorded by the baby accessory in her artist handbag. A bag she asked to allege a breast with some advisors to appraise agent satisfaction, Hoffman couldn't debris afterwards adopting suspicion. One by one, she battened with waiters, cooks, and hostesses. All conversations that Hoffman couldn't hear. The account that emerged was of a man who had angered his restaurant into a claimed ascendancy of bribery and intimidation. But Victoria Sterling hadn't congenital $1 billion ascendancy by actuality impulsive. She knew Hoffman was acute and dangerous. Any apocryphal move could after effect an affirmation actuality destroyed or worse, added accidents. As she was accepting accessible to leave, Victoria chock-full at the table area Marcus was acclamation some plates. "Excellent account tonight," she said, loud abundant for Hoffman to hear. Then, blurred her articulation, so alone Marcus could hear, she added, "Justice may be slow, but it consistently comes." Marcus nodded about imperceptibly. It was as Victoria was walking adjoin the avenue that she noticed Hoffman watching the alternation with bloodthirsty eyes. Article in his announcement changed. A admixture of suspicion and acrimony that beatific his adaptation instincts into aerial alert. In the parking lot, as she got into his car, Victoria noticed a tremendous SUV that hadn't been there back she arrived. The windows were absolutely dark, authoritative and absurd to see who was inside. Aback she pulled out of the parking lot. The SUV followed her. For 3 blocks, the agent maintained a connected distance. Victoria, who hadn't accustomed there by actuality naive, bogus, several accidental avenue changes. The SUV followed her on all of them. Hoffman was activity threatened. And alarming men who feel threatened do atrocious things. Victoria knew she had beyond an airy band tonight. From now on, she wasn't aloof investigating a base employee. She was entering a war adjoin accession who had already asleep, all ready to assure his secrets. As she assuredly managed to lose the SUV through an alternation of assignment on active streets, Victoria smiled for the additional time that day. This time, it wasn't an algid or artful smile. It was the smile of a woman who had activated an antagonist aces of her. What Hoffman didn't apperceive was that Victoria Sterling had abstruse connected ago that the best alarming predators are those who apperceive how to beard themselves as casualty aback necessary. And now that she knew absolutely who she was ambidextrous with, the absolute coursing could begin. Marcus had buried a berry of amends with that atrocious note. But seeds allegation abundant clay to grow, and few things are added abundant than the controlled acerbity of an able woman who has been underestimated already in her activity and vowed never to let it appear again. The abutting morning, Victoria awoke with the assurance of accession who had activated his purpose. By 5 a.m., she was on the buzz with Daniel Rodriguez, Chicago's best clandestine investigator, accepted for dismantling circuitous accumulated schemes. "I allegation you for appropriate operation," Victoria said, sending an alteration of $50,000 as she spoke. Covert, urgent, and with after effects that could booty bottomward an alarming criminal. Daniel laughed on the added end of the line. "Sling, you're speaking my language." Meanwhile, Marcus, accustomed at Sterling Prime for accession shift, blind that her activity was about to change dramatically. Hoffman intercepted him at the agent entrance, his face an affectation of about independent rage. "Vance," he growled, application alone his aftermost name as an anatomy of dehumanization. "My office." Now in the office, Hoffman airtight the aperture shut with boundless force. "Last night, our freeholder paid a abruptness visit. Very absorbing how she paid appropriate absorption to you." Marcus kept his face impassive. "I was aloof accomplishing my job, sir." "Your job, her." Hoffman leaned beyond the desk. "Your job is to serve plates and aggregate tips. It's not to barter elusive glances with billionaires." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "Unless you're accomplishing article, you shouldn't be doing." "I don't apperceive what you're talking about," Marcus replied calmly. But internally, he acquainted the weight of the threat. Hoffman smiled coldly. "Of advance you don't. Aloof like you didn't apperceive his baby sister was airy as she. Shouldn't acquire been that night." The words hit Marcus like a bite in the stomach. Accidents appear to bodies who don't apperceive their place. At that moment, Marcus accomplished that Hoffman hadn't aloof asleep Monica. He was aggressive to do the aforementioned to he. Beyond town, Victoria was acquisition an armory of allies Hoffman could never acquire imagined. In accession to Daniel Rodriguez, she had contacted Jennifer Walsh, a federal prosecutor specializing in accumulated crime, and Sarah Chun, an analytic announcer at the Chicago Tribune, who had won a Pulitzer for advertisement accumulated corruption. What we acquire so far suggests a pattern, Jennifer explained during the affair at Victoria's office. If we can prove that Monica Washington's afterlife was not an accident, we can allegation Hoffman with annihilation and accession to the banking crimes. Sarah bounding through the affirmation Daniel had collected. 3 advisors who larbored abruptly. A apprehensive afterlife embezzlement. This is actual for a bounding analytic series. Victoria smiled. Hoffman thinks he's ambidextrous with a baby baron who will abandon a back the activity gets tough. He has no abstraction who he absolutely is. The plan Victoria devised was able and ruthless. While Daniel installed detached surveillance accessories in the restaurant, Jennifer able chase and access warrants. Sarah began investigating Hoffman's access to counterfeit suppliers and accessible links to organized crime. But the best acute aspect of the plan depended on Marcus. Victoria bare his cooperation, and that meant demography a huge risk. That afternoon, Victoria alternate to Sterling Prime, this time bearded already afresh as an accustomed customer. She accurately asked to be built in by Marcus, blanked the hostess's affable protests about added waiters available. Aback, Marcus approached the table, Victoria battened agilely afterwards attractive anon at him. I apperceive what Hoffman did to Monica. I apperceive he's aggressive you, and I apperceive he is evidence. Marcus about alone the adjustment pad. Ma'am, I tomorrow night afterwards work accommodated me in the parking lot alone. Victoria carefully slipped her agenda beneath the wine list. It's time Monica got the amends she deserves. The agenda independent alone a name, Daniel Rodriguez, accumulated investigations, and a buzz number. That night, Marcus dialed the number. Daniel answered on the aboriginal arena, as if he had been waiting. Marcus Washington, I presume. Daniel said, Victoria Sterling told me about you, about Monica, and about the affirmation you've aggregate over the accomplished 2 years. Marcus swallowed hard. How does she apperceive about Victoria Sterling didn't get area she is by actuality naive, Daniel explained. She knows adventuresomeness aback, she sees it. The catechism is, are you accessible to use this evidence? Marcus' anticipation of Monica. Of all the nights he had spent documenting Hoffman's crimes, cat and mouse for this moment. I'm ready. Afresh tomorrow we alpha the war, Daniel said. But this time, you're not angry alone. Meanwhile, Hoffman acclaimed what he believed to be his final victory. He had managed to alarm Marcus already again, and the baby billionaire had apparently absent absorption in arena detective. He had no abstraction that his every move was actuality monitored, every chat recorded, every certificate photographed. Victoria Sterling had abstruse connected ago that the best alarming predators are those who belittle their prey. Hoffman was about to ascertain that the quiet woman in simple clothes he had alone was not aloof a able businesswoman. She was an unstoppable force aback it came to attention the innocent and backbreaking the guilty. In her arrogance, Hoffman bogus the baleful aberration that all able abyss eventually make, assertive they were smarter than anybody about them. But aback you abuse accession a billionaire has absolutely to protect. You're no best ambidextrous with a bashed employee. You're adverse an absolute ascendancy committed to your destruction. What Hoffman didn't apperceive was that while he slept peacefully, assertive he had the bearings beneath control, the net was closing in on his surroundings. And aback the sun rose, he would ascertain that underestimating Victoria Sterling was the aftermost aberration he would any time accomplish as a chargeless man. On Thursday morning, Richard Hoffman accustomed at Sterling Prime, as he consistently did, 45 account early, blockage every detail of the restaurant like I accepted analytical her troops. But article was different. There was a restriction in the air he couldn't absolutely place, as if an airy storm was brewing. The aboriginal assurance that article was amiss came aback his assistant, Paul, approached him with a afraid expression. Mr. Hoffman, There's an aggregation of federal auditors at the entrance. He has warrants. Ha!